Hey, welcome to another episode of What's It Like? I'm Jay Liebenguth, your host, and thanks for taking the time to join us today. I want to tell a quick little story about Sonya Stejskal, who's our guest today. She's an educator in the Millard Public Schools and an adjunct at UNO. And Sonya was actually our first guest on the show. And make a long story short, we decided to change the set. Sonya came back and offered to sit for this interview on our new set one more time. And so technically, this is our third interview. Thank you so much for coming back. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I just like to share stories. So.
Yeah. Well, and props, too. We've got great props
Good
today,
props.
so we'll get to that in a little bit. But Sonya, you spend a lot of time traveling. That's one of the reasons we ask you to come back, because it's an interesting and fascinating life that you lead. So I wonder if you could just share your experience in travel.
I started traveling when I was still in college, and I went to Europe a couple of times and also into the Middle East, well, into Israel. And from there, then when I got my employment and I had a full-time job as a teacher, then your summers are open. And so I would take my students that I had worked with all year, usually AP European students, and we'd go through Europe, the different places where we had studied. And just for having like 17, 18-year-old students who all of a sudden go, oh my God, this is what Versailles looks like, or this is great, I can be Heidi up in the Swiss Alps, or...
It looks different than in the book.
Yeah, it sure does. And there's more chocolate there you can eat, so that's always good. Or, they go to Rome, and then they see all the layers of history, and you're just like, this is an amazing place. And then they all want to go back, which means then when they go to university or something, then their junior year abroad, a lot of them are trying to go to study in Ireland or England or Spain. It's really a good thing. It kind of entices them to open up to see a global view.
It's nice that you led so many young people to travel. What was it that ticked it off for you? What was the impetus for you to go?
The first time that I went to Europe, I was with West Side, because the school, my high school, didn't really have teachers who would take, 10, 15 kids and take them to Europe, because a lot of people don't want to take 10 or 15 kids or 20 kids to Europe.
Yeah, we'll talk about the logistics in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can understand
Yeah, and because summers are sacred to teachers, so a lot of teachers are like, verboten. And then there's other crazy teachers like me and some of my comrades, and we're like, no, let's all go and we'll have a great time and see new things and places. So we do it, and usually it's a really good experience.
Yeah. So what does it take to get those students to go? I mean, obviously they have to raise funds and everything like that, but the permission that exists and all of that, how do you convince those parents that's a good idea?
Yeah. Well, because it was Millard, and a lot of the parents, some of them have traveled with their work or something, so a lot of parents want them to go, and sometimes we've had parents who have gone. And one time we had an entire family go. Both the dad was a doctor, he took off, and the mom, and 3 kids. So that was a real stabilizing influence the time we took them, because then there was a different mother figure and father figure, and he was a doctor, bonus in case something happened. So that was good.
So of the number of groups that you've taken, what are some of the more memorable events that you experienced?
Just the aha moments. I mean, that's over and over, but it's always like new kids, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get it now. Or, oh, I've seen, the remains of the Berlin Wall. Or, oh, I would love to go down into the Colosseum and crawl around more. And I was like, no, verboten, you can't do that. But, I mean, they really get into it. And then they have to go out and they have to experiment with new languages. And the finger knows all languages. I want that pastry. Mm-hmm. I need a bathroom, things like that.
It's fluent in many languages.
Yeah,
that
the
one
finger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was the preparation like for these kids? Because I've traveled a little bit myself, and I know that there is such a thing as the ugly American, when you travel. And talk to us a little bit about what you did to prepare these kids.
Well, one is the history background.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, a lot of them have languages. So they've also been prepared like for Spanish culture or for French culture or Deutsch. And then third of all, I kind of have different meetings both with the parents and with the kids about don't do this, don't get drunk, everybody watches everybody's back. This is how they're going to try to pickpocket you. This is why you don't give anybody your real name or your real hotel, and then we all have fake names and we have code words. Like if some guys are hitting on some of the girls, like down in Florence or something, then if they just, like look around and they go, Mom, and then it's like, so if you say Mom, you get the mother look or the mother viciousness.
Yeah.
And that scares a lot of the young Italians away.
Well, that's good. But any bad experiences? Anything that, everything that is a part of traveling is part of the experience. I understand that. But there must have been times when...
Yeah, we were walking from the Spanish Stairs, and we were going towards the Pantheon, and there was a narrow kind of street that you walk on. And I had warned them about pickpockets, and it was a cute little 9-year-old boy and his 5-year-old sister. And the 9-year-old boy would be holding the newspaper up to you about right here, and then the little 4-year-old or 5-year-old girl would be underneath, and she'd be going, because one girl was wearing her little purse right underneath, right in front of her, but the little girl just and took maybe a couple $100 out of the purse. But then when the football players were like, we're gonna get those kids, the problem is the kids zoomed down a side alley, and in front at the beginning of the side alley are their parental units or big bullies that are making the kids steal. So then all of a sudden there's these big Italian, buff guys who are like, and so then the football players were like, no, come back here, we'll get it organized. But yeah, she lost a lot of money to two cute little Italian kids.
It was probably a good story. It was
It's a
$200
good
worth of
story.
a good story.
Yeah, but then she had barely any money, but we only had 4 days left. But still, the problem was she felt so violated, and and then that has a bad taste in your mouth, and then but everybody's on the lookout then afterwards, and it became a lesson not only for her but for our whole group, how to work together, how to walk down streets. You always have one teacher as lead and one teacher as drag, like herding cattle, and
Or maybe cats.
oh yeah, sometimes it's cats.
So how is this experience traveling with students? How does that differ from your own travel?
Usually I travel just with 1 or 2 other people, and each one of us have a strength. Like some of us can really see our ways through different maps and parts of the city. Others have like a language forte, and then others are just so gregarious that either the Italians or the Greeks or even the Germans, will just kind of clue in on that one person of the 3 of us, that we're all going together. But when I was younger, it was much more like hostels and backpacks. And then when I had students, it was like one more suitcase, but then still a backpack. And now when I travel, it's like more with a known agency, and then going really places where you wouldn't take students. So
I'm not going to try and guess your college years or anything, but it's safe to say you've traveled over decades.
Yes, that's true.
How has that changed for you?
Well, the money situation is a lot easier. And traveler's checks, you don't need those anymore. You just need a Visa card or something. And the language situation, a lot more young people know English from different music and everything. And then the finger still works for everything.
Right.
And then a lot of places you aren't, as a woman, like I've always wanted to go to Saudi Arabia, and I can't go without like my husband or my dad, who's dead, so I can't go with him. And so it depends where you want to go, how nice you want to be treated, and if you want to get diarrhea.
Those are, important characterizations. You brought some really nice things here, and I'd just like to play a little guess the continent. I'm not going to try and guess the country, and then you could tell us a little story about your travels there. I'm going to go with this one first. I'm guessing Asia.
Yes, that's from India, and I studied in India on a Fulbright Hays grant, and this is a lunchbox. So
Those are awesome. I've seen similar things.
Get them. Don't you have a little lunchbox? lunchbox? Yeah, that little red one.
That's quite a bit different than,
Okay, but I mean,
yeah, the
so our
style is-
lunchbox is like square, and then you have a square sandwich inside, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have a small apple because it's square, okay?
It fits in a square.
Here, yeah, and here you open it up, and then maybe somebody will actually just, I don't know, make it for you and send it later with a guy on a bicycle.
Oh, right.
But then you'll have like your chapati, or I guess you can just hold that. These are all brass, so that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have each one just opening, and you have bread in one, rice in one, and then curried something or other, vegetables in another.
Brass Tupperware.
Yeah, very nice. And then, I mean, you can use it forever, and it stays heated. And I just think it's kind of very efficient.
Yeah.
Whereas in here, you have to wrap things with plastic and
Everything has to be square.
yeah.
All right. I'm gonna guess on this one. I'm gonna guess Africa.
Yes.
All right.
So this I bought on one of my safaris in Africa outside of Kenya on just a little roadside stand. And I don't know if you can get really close in there, but her face is all tattooed beautifully. And then she's just like carrying a little load, and then she has just, one kind of sarong on and very short hair, but it's just a beautiful piece. And so I always look at it like my life can never be this tough, where I have to walk down the street and I don't have shoes on, and, but she's beautiful and elegant. Just beautiful.
How do you bring these stories back to the classroom? I mean, how do you?
I bring stuff back into the classroom. I have them taste different things. I ask them, like, where was your clothes made? And then we go from where your clothes is made. Well, this, is Indonesia, and for a while I taught in Jakarta, over here. And then I traveled throughout Southeast Asia and all the way over to Papua New Guinea. And so while I taught, I was the foreigner because I was American. And my students were evangelical Chinese living in Indonesia. So my children, they were in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, and I was writing curriculum for middle school. And the children were of very rich parental units, and the dad maybe owned a fishing fleet or a canning fleet. And then
the children of industrialists.
yes, and then moms were like, I'll just buy and sell small shops and strip malls that we own. So Christmas was really good for the teachers. But the teachers were only from China, young women who spoke Mandarin Chinese, and Americans, or not Canadians and not Australians, because they didn't want that accent in their young children. So they wanted an American accent of their English. And then they were forbidden to speak Bahasa, the language of Indonesia, because Bahasa was the language that you used only for your servants. And so a lot of these kids had ransoms or, kidnapping threats and stuff on them. So after school, when we were getting ready to close school, the teachers had to double check that the child, the nanny, and the driver and the car were all correct.
Wow.
Before we let the kids into the car. So it's very different. It's a small, very exclusive school.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about kidnapping before we got started today, and you bring it up again. How big a fear is it to travel as a woman and as an American woman and around the world? Are there places that you feel less safe, and how do you deal with that?
Well, because there were 2 young women that were also teaching with me in Java, and they were from Wisconsin, and this was their first teaching gig overseas. And they were young and pretty and bosomy, and they went out together to a dance club, that somebody at school had said, that's a good one, you won't get. But somebody slipped the bigger one, the taller one. She was like 6 foot, which in Indonesia, it's like being in middle school with all the kids with black hair. And so I'm already a foot taller than they are, even if they're adults. And then I don't have black hair, so I cannot fit in at all. And this girl, this other woman that taught, she was taller than I was, and she had a very beautiful, large, youthful bosom. And the Indonesian guys were just like, oh, I want to dance with you or whatever. Somebody slipped her a roofie. Ugh. But her girlfriend realized that she was in trouble, and she realized she was in trouble. And so they right away, got a cab, and then as they were getting in the cab, two of the guys were trying to get in with her, and the girl who was still cognizant and everything, she just pushed this guy out of the back seat. And, then they had a couple of words of Bahasa, so then they could tell the driver where to go, etc. But it was dangerous for them, and you can never, trust your drink unless you open it yourself, whether it's water or whatever, and not just to kidnap, but so you don't get bad water and then have super bad.
Well, I think there's an awareness that goes on there.
Yeah.
I find my state of awareness a little bit higher when I travel, just because you're in a different place. You should pay attention.
Oh, yeah. You should always pay attention. And then, certain things or scams or, oh, I bet this, would be a great dance club. You should come there with us. And I was like, no.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but there's places anywhere in probably
here.
This town that you wouldn't want to be in at any given time. So I'm going to guess on this one. This just looks like a tree or something. I'm guessing that this is going to be Asia as well.
Yes.
Okay.
This is part of the inside of the bark tree, and this is also from Indonesia, and this is raw cinnamon.
Oh, it looks just like regular size, what we call regular size cinnamon.
It's just like, so what we see is powdered cinnamon from Ceylon or Sri Lanka, but this is Indonesian, and each country that has their cinnamon has a slightly different taste and a different kind of atmospheric absorption of nutrients. It's like wine. You can get your cinnamon from anywhere, you can get your wine from anywhere, but it'll be different depending on where you get it.
Was there more of this before Thanksgiving?
No, not this time. But I am really tempted to break some off. But I like to show it in my classes because spices are one of the things that always Europeans wanted from Asia and from Southeast Asia. And the Dutch are the ones who first started trading for this.
Dutch West Indies Company.
Yeah, and so the Dutch were like, oh yeah, this cinnamon is gonna, about 11 ounces of cinnamon would cost, back in the 1700s, about 10 months worth of salary. Wow. So it was considered just for kings and then also to give tribute to gods and stuff.
That's amazing. But I also like how that history is made real by being there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, do you still take students around? Are you still involved with travel in that way?
I'm traveling. I'm going to Cuba this next May and June, at the end of May and beginning of June, with economic professors from UNL and UNO. And it'll be my second time to Cuba. Before I went 3 years ago in the spring with just UNO teachers and some students, and that was before it was officially opened. So now I want to go 3 years later after it was opened by Obama, and I want to see what's happened and how much more, because there was a big Chinese influence in Cuba because the Chinese were in, just trying to buy up stuff and start hotels and everything. But now with the Americans there for almost 3 years, now there should be an American kind of flavor to Cuba again, but different than before when there was mafia flavor. So.
Right. Well, what are you looking forward to seeing? Do you believe that change is going to be there, or do you believe that time passes really slowly in Cuba?
Well, the one thing that everybody likes is to see all the classic old American cars from the 50s, early 50s. And we saw amazing cars, all reworked and everything, and put on Soviet chassis and everything. So we want to see if those cars have been bought up by people in Florida and everything.
Hipsters.
And I want to see what the costs are now.
Yeah.
When it's more open and Americans come in with great big, floating cities of tourists coming in on the cruise liners, if that's really messed up the system.
Yeah, it seems to me that their system needs to be built to be able to accommodate that crush of people. That's just my opinion. All right, I'm going to guess on the last one because,
Okay.
I remember. It's Africa.
No, no, no.
No.
This is Papua New Guinea. This is way over here. I'll point to it.
There you go.
Okay, Papua New Guinea this is way up in the mountains, like Stone Age people. This is a penis gourd. Only for the men grow their own gourds. I think that's
Yeah, this is my favorite part of the show.
Okay, they grow their own gourd, and it depends on what clan you are, how big your gourd is.
Gotcha. Just going to leave these all right here where they are.
This one, just to show you, they can curve them and grow them just so like at first glance you can tell what clan they are.
There you are.
And then
It's like a kilt in Scotland.
Yeah, well, this could go under a kilt.
Clan. I mean, the clan.
Well, it's a clan thing. Yeah, there's no plaid. Basic beige. And
Tartan.
and then this part, this little string that's woven orchid fiber, goes around two parts. And then the longer part goes in here. And then this is tied with this long string up against your chest or up against your waist. So it's in an upright position. And if you have a curve, usually the curve goes up like this. But if you have a really thick, they have some gourds that are really thick, and then they leave it open at top, and then at the top, they only burrow down in it so far, and then they put their tobacco, their chewing tobacco in it, or their money.
All your important stuff in
Yeah,
one spot.
so this is like a man purse. Okay.
We could have called it a man purse, and I would have been better.
And that would have been, just around his neck, but
Yeah,
no, that's not
yeah.
going to happen. I had a friend she was a gifted instructor in Kearney, and then she went to New Guinea, and she met this Malaysian or this Indonesian guy who is a Muslim, and they fell in super love, and she married him. She married him in America in a civil ceremony with a white gown. Then they got married in a Muslim ceremony in Java, and she didn't have to wear the white gown, but she did wear like red because it's a auspicious color. And then she took her wedding gown to Papua New Guinea. She was up in the hills in the different tribes, and she had to be adopted to a different tribe than Lex, her husband. And then they went through a ceremony with the clans, and Lex had to wear one of these. And then he was supposed to take his skin and cover it in black ash. But they up there would use pig fat to mix with the ash. But he's a Muslim, so he brought Crisco from Java. And so he mixed it up, and then he put on the Crisco ash, and then she came out in her white dress from America. And all the clans, all the people were like, oh, it's so ugly, because white is the color of death. Oh. Because when they die, their skin turns white. But when they're alive, their skin is beige, you know? So they were like freaked out. And she goes, okay, I'll go back and I'll dress like a wedding person in the Dani tribe. And so she came out with an orchid skirt. It's just like this twine, only like a Hawaiian skirt. And then she's supposed to have the black ash on her upper body, but nothing, just basic bosom. And she couldn't do that. So she did bring a black sports bra, and she wore that, and then a necklace, kind of a big woven necklace thing, and flowers. And then they were cool with that. And then they got married, and then it was like happy time to kill pigs for everybody. So Lex has to buy at least 6 pigs to buy her from the other tribe. And so he bought 12. So it was the talk of all the mountain clans.
She's a 12-pig wife. She's
12 pigs, and they cut off the tails of the pigs, and they nail them onto the wall of the family big longhouse. So they know how many pigs are left and how many pigs. So she was the most expensive bride in the whole valley, in the Balium Valley. And
that must have made her feel special.
Well, yeah, so many pigs croaked just for you.
Is there a custom or an idea that you would bring back to the United States? Something you think we miss, or something that you've encountered out there that goes, man, that's something that we could use here?
Usually because when I studied in India and everything, I met a lot of Hindus and then some Buddhists. And then the next 2 years after India, I went into Thailand and into China. And I think kind of the Buddhist ideals, or like what we hear from the Dalai Lama, like, kind of mellow out and everybody's the same and we're just passing through this and, let's calm ourselves a little. I think that's really important. And I think that when you go over to, like in India, I didn't have any fear of like being kidnapped or something because I was really freaking way too big. I couldn't even wear, I couldn't wear jewelry that was made there because the bone structure is smaller for Indians. And then I couldn't wear clothes because, I could wear a sari, but women would always come by, like when I went to the restroom and I was getting, washing my hands and everything. My sari was too short because I'm too tall.
Right.
So they would always be trying to pull my sari down, and then that would pull at the waistband, and I was like, this isn't going to work, So there were certain things that I was way outsized. When I was in Indonesia, I couldn't buy jewelry, I couldn't buy clothes, but I could go to an Australian store and get clothes that fit. So,
Sonya, I just have one more question. It's a really
Okay.
quick one. What's left on your bucket list? Where do you need to go?
One of my great travel companions, she's in St. Louis right now. She's retired from the Air Force. She wants to go down to Antarctica
Ooh.
and see everything before it's not there.
Better pack a sweater.
Yeah.
Sonya Stejskal, educator, world traveler, a person I think who really appreciates what we have here. And I thank you so much again for coming back. And bon voyage.
Oh, thank you. Even better.
Hey, thanks for tuning into What's It Like. As your host and producer, I really want to make this show interesting and relevant. And so we need your help. We need your ideas. We need your connections. We need your feedback. Who or what would make a good show? What topics do you feel challenged by, and how could we shed some light on them? Do you know someone interesting that would be a great interview? Well, if you have an answer for any of these, it's easy enough to connect with us. Go to our Facebook page, which is that @ What's It Like to Be, or drop us an email at whatsitlikeshow@gmail.com. Again, thanks for tuning in.